All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I am here with the former New York State Athletic Commissioner, Randy Gordon. Randy, how's it going? Nice to see you. Good to have you back again.
Nice to be back. Hope you and everybody else is well out there.
Doing
As
good.
we are a couple of weeks away from spring, and I always love it when I can say winter is gone.
That's right. That's right. So the big news this week: Gervonta Davis, Lamont Roach, that infamous ninth round, and Mike Coppinger said that I guess the New York State Athletic Commission is going to review that, and I have the instant replay policy here in front of me, and also too, Chris Mannix mentioned that he contacted some officials, some referees off the record, and he said all the referees he talked to said that was a knockdown. And we can all go back to that Floyd Mayweather Carlos Hernandez incident when Floyd Mayweather hit Carlos Hernandez, hurt his hand, and then he just took a knee, and the referee started counting. So, to my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, once a fighter takes a knee, automatically that's a knockdown, and the referee just starts counting. So, what are your thoughts on what you saw, and give me your interpretation on what you think should have happened?
Okay, I happened to be there that night. I was ringside, and the moment that Gervonta Davis took a knee, you heard the shouts from all of my colleagues. What's he doing? I wasn't asking that. I was basically out of my seat yelling, knockdown, knockdown. And then it was like, count, count, Steve, to the referee, Willis, count. The moment that happens, the rule is if any part of a fighter's body other than the soles of his or her feet touch the canvas, it's a knockdown. If you get hit on the shoulder and you fly backwards and you trip and your butt hits the floor, it's a knockdown unless the referee says no knockdown, he tripped, she tripped. But in this case, he turned around, took a knee. First, he actually looked at the referee as if he was going to say, he looked at the ref, looked to his left, then he turned to his right and took a knee, then got up. But by the time as soon as he hit the knee, the referee appeared to make a down. The referee is supposed to point to the floor, down, knockdown. And at that point, the referee is supposed to pick up the count and from the knockdown timekeeper, who is taught that whenever somebody goes down, you watch the person who goes down, and the second they hit the floor, you begin. They hit the floor, one, two. The referee will direct the other person to a neutral corner, look at the timekeeper, who's now three, four, and they pick up that count. I don't remember hearing anything from a knockdown timekeeper, but I kind of recall, and I think the films will show Steve Willis making a call of a knockdown, but then he didn't count. He should have taken it upon himself to start counting and then stay right with Gervonta Davis, tell the guy from the corner, get down, which, by the way, again is against the rules because no corner person is allowed to step up on the ring, get into the ring, or even reach through the ropes, which they did. That is a disqualification. So, any way you want to look at this, if you don't want to use the DQ, because I got to tell you, if I was head of the commission again, I would get rid of that rule. I see no reason that a fighter should be punished so badly that they lose on a DQ just because their corner person jumped up on their ring apron or whatever. Let's say you're winning the fight, and now, for whatever reason, one of your corner people jump up in the ring. You can't lose the fight for that, and I would have wiped that out. But it's still there. But the fact is, it should have been a knockdown. It should have been a 10-8 round. you don't know how the judges would have scored it because, quite frankly, I thought that Gervonta Davis might have been winning that round. They might have made it 10-9, but chances are they would have made it 10-8. And look, two of the judges had it 114, 114. So just one more point towards Lamont Roach would have given him the fight. He should be champion. And yeah, the commission is reviewing it. And I have a feeling before this week comes to an end, they are going to have a result. And I don't think the result is going to stay a draw.
And that's a great point you made because I scoured the internet trying to look for an example when a fight was changed from a loss or a draw to a win. Now I see them change to no contests, but I've never seen, even when Juan Manuel Marquez fought Pacquiao, the judge admitted he made a mistake in the round. And if he scored it the way he wanted to score it, Pacquiao would have won the fight, but that fight still wasn't overturned. Can you name an example? Because I can't, where actual decision from a loss or a draw was turned to a win, because I can't
No,
recall if that ever happened.
I I think it has, but like you, I've been scouring the internet, uh, trying to find that one fight, and I just can't think of where it may have happened. Look, there are instances where guys went down, and you could go to the internet and see this. I believe the boxing match was in 1969, something like that.
Wow.
Two heavyweights, contenders Jerry Quarry was fighting contender George Savallo. And Jerry was basically winning the fight and then gets tagged around the sixth, seventh round with a left hook. He gets dropped. He jumps up, and the referee is counting, giving him the mandatory 8, 6. And then Jerry, he was so frustrated that he got knocked down that out of frustration, he stupidly went back down to one knee. And he's thinking to himself, boy, what a dummy I was to drop my hand like that. I got hit. And as he's thinking this, the referee's going 7, 8, 9, 10, you're out. Jerry jumped up and said, what do you mean I'm out? I went down, but I got back up. But the referee said, but you went back down again. I continue counting. You cannot take a timeout during a round. I do believe that Gervonta Davis was being blinded by something. But the fact is, you can't call a timeout because, what if he was blinded and they let the guy come up and wipe his eyes? Or what if a towel was thrown to the referee and he wiped the eyes, which he can't do? I mean, it really makes no sense because 10 seconds later, his eyes might have been burning and he would have had a call time again. It makes no sense whatsoever. So if you go back to 1964, February 25th, 1964, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay won the heavyweight championship from Sonny Liston. And in the fifth round, Cassius Clay couldn't see because of the liniment that was being rubbed on Sonny Liston's injured left shoulder. And when Ali was jabbing him and a punch might slide off his arm, it got onto Clay's gloves. And Clay would be wiping his own sweat with the gloves. And when he was in close, put his head close on Liston's shoulder. And that liniment burned his eyes. And he couldn't see in the fifth round. And he came back and he told Angelo Dundee, cut the gloves off. I can't see. Angelo wiped his eyes. And at the end of the rest period, Clay's eyes were still burning. And Angelo gave him one word of advice: run. And Clay did that. He ran, kept his left hand out in front of him, knew where Liston was, but he couldn't really see him. And for 3 solid minutes, remember, Liston doesn't realize that Clay is blinded. He just thinks he's acting kind of strange with his left hand way out in front of him. So he kind of approached with caution. And then Clay's eyes cleared up by the very end of the round. He came back and then in the seventh round came out and finished him off, and Liston quit on his stool. But the fact is, no matter how much pain you're in, you could have a pin in your shoe that came loose or something, and it could be sticking you in the toe. You find a way to get through that round. There could be something in your hair, the gel, whatever, the sweat. As a matter of fact, on my Sirius XM show yesterday, one of the fighters on that card, Gary Antoine Russell, said to me that he had his hair done and they put a gel in his hair, just like Gervonta Davis. And he said, you could see my face sweating, and the sweat is pouring down my face, and it was white because of the gel. And it burned, but not that badly, but it did burn. And I told him when I got back to my corner one round, and this was 12 full rounds, they put his head back and they basically dump water on him to let the water flow backwards and get some of that gel out of there. Then they dried his hair and dried his forehead. But you got to do whatever you can as a fighter, whatever kind of pain you're in. You pop your shoulder out, you take a knee, it's a knockdown. What we saw the other night with Gervonta Davis was a knockdown. What we saw with the referee was an absolute blown call. And now the New York State Athletic Commission is going to have to make it right.
Yeah. You mentioned the rule about going up on the ring apron, and I like that idea that you mentioned that shouldn't be a disqualification. But what if the person comes up on the ring apron and makes contact with the fighter? Would you make a provision for that? Because he wiped his face, and if he didn't wipe his face, he would still be in duress. In other words, so it's like you gave him an advantage by wiping his face. Because I'll tell you what I thought. I thought two things. It could have been maybe the Vaseline from his eye, because sometimes they have Vaseline above their eye and the sweat, and possibly the glove kind of twisted and pushed the Vaseline in his eye. Because the whole grease thing kind of was far fetched, but now that you told me the story with Gary on Antoine Russell, it becomes more plausible now, obviously. But I thought it could have been like the Vaseline in his eye, or it could have been maybe like, I don't know, an eyelash or something. But the fact that his trainer made contact with him and wiped his face off, to me, that could be a disqualification because he made contact with him. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, that rule is in place, and you're absolutely right. Again, I hate that rule, and I just would hate to see a fighter lose a fight because of that. Um, Look, in another very famous fight back in, I guess it was 1990, Mildred Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez fought in one of history's most brutal back and forth fights. The fight goes into the 12th round, and they are still battering each other. They are both swollen, they are both bruised. But Mildred Taylor, his face is a puffy, swollen, beaten mess. But yet, he was on his way to beating Julio Cesar Chavez. And with seconds remaining in the final round, Mildred Taylor gets knocked down. He gets up. Referee Richard Steele is right in his face, gives him the mandatory 8 count, and then looks at him with seconds to go and asks him a question like, are you all right? Do you want to continue? And all he got was a blink of the eyes, a very slow blink of the eyes, and then Mildred turned slowly to his right because up in the ring was his manager trainer, Lou Duva, coming into the ring, who thought he heard a bell. Richard Steele waves off the fight because he had just asked the question, are you all right or do you want to continue? And he needed an answer to that. Are you all right? Yeah. Do you want to continue? Yeah. All he got was no response, a blink of the eyes, and then a turn to the right. Lou Duva coming into the ring actually ended the fight. It was a DQ because Lou Duva was now in the ring with a couple of seconds left. Now, he could say he didn't know. We don't know that he didn't know, but the fact is, you should know. The rounds are 3 minutes long, not 257, 258. They're 3 minutes long. A round ends with a bell. A fight ends with a bell. There was no bell. So I'm always going to side with referee Richard Steele on that because he was right there, right in the face of Mildred Taylor. And yes, it was loud out there. And many times it is very difficult to hear. Look, I've been in the ring interviewing guys when the crowd is still roaring and I'm standing right next to the guy with a microphone. I ask him the question, and in my earpieces, the IFB, I'm hearing myself talk. So I ask him, that final round, you had to really dig down, and whatever the question is, uh, when that bell rang, did you think you had it? And then when he's answering, I still hear his answer in my ear, but the crowd is so loud, you really can't hear them. So maybe Richard Steele asked him the question and got an answer like, mm-hmm, but he needed to see it. Yes. He saw nothing and he had to stop the fight. But this was quite clear what happened the other night at the Barclays Center. There was no secret about it. Gervonta Davis took a shot, and then there was a delayed reaction, like a body shot almost, where he then turned. He looked at the ref, then turned and took a knee. Knockdown. Plain and simple. There is no other excuse for that.
Yeah.
That was a knockdown. So we
Yeah.
have to see. And I do think that this week sometime, I think now the commission will get together. They'll hear what they have to hear from the referee. They're going to watch all the video they can possibly get. And I know that they feel under the gun. Now, when I was commissioner, I would never let the media dictate when I would make the decision. Look, the decision has been rendered as a draw. And if it takes me a day, 2 days, if it takes me a week, if it takes me a month, what's the big deal if I look at every possible angle here before I make a decision? But I think that in this case, because I think it's so black and white, that I do think that a decision will be rendered this week by the New York State Athletic Commission.
But here's the $1 million question, though, Randy. Because the scorecards were already submitted, can the official scorecards be changed?
See, I never had that happen. And I would say that the commission does have the power to do that because there was a huge error committed. So the question is, how was that round scored anyway? And I believe the round was scored 10-9 for Lamont Roach. But I really wonder, and is it because the judges have read everything and seen everything, they realize it is a knockdown. Would they say, yes, I would make it 10-8? Is that fair to do? They are three world class judges. And I have a feeling that had that been a knockdown, it would have been a 10-8 round for
Correct.
Roach. But
Yeah.
that's me. I don't know how the judges would have scored it.
Yeah.
I I wonder if they're going to take that into account because um, I think even a 10-9 round for Lamont Roach, um, which I do believe if that was a 10-9 round for Lamont Roach, a 10-8 round would have turned the score.
Correct.
So we have to see what they're going to do with that because you have to interview all three judges.
Yeah.
And then if you interview all three judges, again, is it really fair after the fact when they know the scores and they know that what they do, what they say is definitely going to make a difference? Um, we'll just have to watch it and see. Now, if they decide you can't do that, then I think what they're going to do, and this is probably what's going to happen, the fight will become a no contest, no decision kind of. But it
Yeah.
to me, it's almost the same thing as a draw.
Correct. Correct.
All I know is that Lamont Roach should have won that fight. Lamont Roach should be world champion. Lamont Roach should be getting the big payday, the one that every fighter
Yeah.
wants in his very next fight.
That's correct.
And I think that the referee took that from him, and the referee should feel very badly about his actions that night.
Yeah. So if you're a commissioner, Randy, we're going to put you on the spot. You got your old job back, right? Because I think does the commissioner have the final say here on what happens in terms of how they want to proceed forward? Would the commissioner be the person that has the final decision, or is there any protocol that has to be followed with other people involved in order for the anything to be changed?
Well, it's funny. I would make my decision and have my answer in my head. And then just to see, because it was for a sanctioning body title, I would call the WBC, Mauricio Solomon, or whoever that particular sanctioning body's head is, and I'd say, here's how I view it, because my decision could affect your championship. Now, of course, well, I think Lamont um, Lamont Roach was fighting for that. Was it a WBO title?
WBA. It was a WBA. Yeah.
WBA, right? Because the WBC champion is Shakur Stevenson,
Yeah.
and I would just get a hold of the president of the WBA, and I'd say, "Here's what we're going to do. It has been ruled a draw, and I am going to, after interviewing the referees, or whatever, if I decide that I'm going to overturn the decision, and I'm going to give the decision to Lamont Roach.
Yeah.
He wins the fight in my book. Are you going to acknowledge him as your champion, or are you going to continue to recognize Gervonta Davis as your champion?" So it's something that I would have to make that decision, and I do think it's. I don't think it's that draw is going to stand. I think it's either going to be overturned or most likely ruled a no decision, no contest, which to me, again, is somewhat akin to a draw.
So Randy, say the sanctioning body said, "Well, we're going to still allow Gervonta Davis to be the champion." Would you still overturn the decision regardless and just make the record straight in your mind? Or could, if the sanctioning body said he's still going to be champion anyways, because we're not going to recognize that, or I don't think they would be able to keep them as champion though, because the commission I think would overrule the sanctioning body in terms of the record. So I don't think they could really do anything. They would have to make him not champion again. If I think the commission overrules the sanctioning body in
There's
this situation. I think so. It wouldn't matter. Yeah.
You are absolutely right. On two occasions in my career, I had a run in with sanctioning bodies, and the sanctioning bodies said that they're not going to recognize whatever. And I said, well, then I'm going to the media, and it's going to be the media and me against you. Who do you think is going to win this battle? I mean,
Yeah.
don't play this game. Don't come into my backyard and start telling me what the rules are. I know what the rules are in a fight. I've interviewed everybody possible, and here's what I'm going to do. And this will be my decision with or without you. So the WBA, if it does get overturned and Lamont Roach is now recognized as champion, I don't think the WBA has any recourse except to say we are accepting the decision of the New York State Athletic Commission. If they say the decision stands, they'll accept that. And I think if they say the decision is a no contest or no decision, I think they'll accept that too.
Yeah. Let me read the rule here at the bottom. It says, because this is the instant replay policy right from the New York State Athletic Commission, and it says nothing in this policy shall restrict the commission's authority to review video evidence to determine the correct outcome after the final official score of about
Yeah.
has been announced in the ring. So it says they have the ability to determine the correct outcome. Now, that to me indicates that it's possible that they could go above the no contest and reverse the decision and give it to Lamont Roach. That's how I interpret it. How would you interpret that? Am I fair in my assessment after reading that?
Yes, I hear it the same way. But again, I think it all comes down to that ninth round and how you
Yeah,
deal with that ninth round
yeah,
and how the judges all viewed that
yeah,
ninth round.
yeah,
And whether they scored a 10-9 for Gervonta Davis, whether they scored a 10-9 for Lamont Roach, or if it was a knockdown, would they have made it 10-8? Can you do that?
yeah,
And it's one thing how they scored it. It's another how you would have scored it. But I think it's quite clear that, and not all the time does a fighter who scores a knockdown win at 10-8. Because what if fighter A is winning that round and fighter B then knocks him down and then continues after A gets up and A continues his domination? Is that a 10-8 round? There are judges who will make it a 10-9 round for fighter B, but not a 10-8 round because he was losing most of the round except for that quick knockdown.
yeah. And then,
So it's how they would have scored it. And I think that's where the problem can come in, that it's not a given that they would have made it 10-8. And I think as they get interviewed, and I'm sure they will be interviewed, I think that's going to be a key issue here.
yeah. Since you said you were there, I would like to know the supervisor that was there for the commission. I'm sure there's a supervisor there for the commission representing the commission. What was their reaction? I mean, were you able to see what was going on around the ring in terms of the supervisor, any people working for the commission? What was their reaction, and did they do anything during that incident?
I, I was with the Ringside Media. I was with
Okay,
I was with my partner Jerry Cooney and so many of today's great writers, Keith Idek and Ryan Sangalia, and just a
yeah,
bunch of really great writers. And there was bedlam. There was bedlam going on. Everybody seemed to be running around at ringside. Um, it did seem that there was a lot of confusion. I didn't notice anything with either supervisor, no supervisor for the New York State Athletic Commission because um, Matt Delaglio, who's doing a great job. He runs the commission. He is like their executive director and doing a great job. But the WBO would have had a supervisor. They would have had to come over and talk with him. And I'm sure after the fight there was an in the back kind of meeting with them because they knew. And see, I couldn't stay around because I would have loved to gotten in there, but I realized, it was a closed door thing. And they do not invite members of the media back there. They do not invite former commissioners back there. Nobody gets in. And I'm looking at my watch, and it's late at night. And if I don't jump on a Long Island Railroad in the next few minutes, the next train out of Barclay Center, which is just horrendous to get back to Long Island,
Yeah. I
where
heard the
I
traffic's horrible. The parking, traffic, everything. Yeah.
forget it. The
Yeah.
next train out is not going to get me back to Long Island until the sun is coming up in the morning. I said, you know what? Me staying here is not going to change the course of this fight. I'm out of here. Good night, everybody. And I woke up in the morning to exactly what I realized, that it was closed doors for quite a while. And I've been called by a few anonymous people from the commission who who always stay in touch with me, and they told me it was basically chaos back there because the referee knew that he had really pulled one of the worst moves seen in boxing in many, many years by not ruling that a knockdown.
So, so do you think, Randy, and I hate doing this because it almost looked, I can't say it was, but it looked nefarious. And do you think because of how it looked, that's going to add even more pressure to the New York State Athletic Commission to possibly overturn this and give Lamont Roach the win because it looks so sketchy. You don't, you want to say it wasn't nefarious, but I just can't understand. This is an experienced referee. It's hard for me to say it was incompetence.
Well, the two words usually come up. One is incompetence. Another is, and I hate this one too, when they say the guy is unscrupulous. He's I don't think it's either. I think he just blew it.
Yeah,
You see in football blown calls. You see in baseball blown calls. The guy slides in, the umpire goes safe. They challenge it, he was out, or vice versa. There are calls that are made that are not correct. And in this case, where you don't see actions like this very often, the referee, remember, every time out there, every fight is kind of like a fingerprint. Everything's the same, but everything's different. And all of a sudden, the guy takes a knee, turns around, whatever, walks away. Well, if a guy turns his back and he starts to walk away, to me, that's the same thing as a knockdown. You don't walk over to him and say, "Excuse me, why are you turning away?" As soon as he turns away, one, you start counting. There are causes for calling a knockdown. Either the two guys are fighting or they're not. There is no time out in boxing during a round. Well, there is if the referee calls. He will then say, time, and make it very clear that it's time. Stop the watch. And he looks right over at the timekeeper. He knows where they're sitting. Looks at them, points to them, time. They hit their watch. Then he could go over and begin his questioning. If the guy is coming up, starting to come up, he looks at him. Do not come up on these steps again. Don't put your foot there. You stay down. Then he goes over to the fighter. What's wrong? After he administers his count, um, he can't ask him what's wrong. But my eyes are burning. Can you continue? Yes, but I need my eyes wiped. They cannot be wiped until after the round. You ready to continue? Right now, yes or no? I can't see. Can you continue? I can't see. Fight's over.
yeah.
The referee has to take charge. And okay, well, let me go over and bring up your corner man and have him wipe your eyes. I mean, very indecisive, looks very, very bad. And I thought it looked bad for the New York State Athletic Commission, for the referee, for the sport of boxing. The fans were screaming, like even Gervonta Davis's own fans realized they were getting some kind of break.
Yeah,
Yeah, we haven't heard the end of this, and I think we are going to hear the end within a couple of days, maybe even by the end of today.
that's right. That's right. So, what was the opinion of the people that were there, press row, people that you talked to? Did they think that this fight was close? Could they fathom the draw at the end of it? What was the feeling before those scorecards were announced? Who did people think won, and who did they think was actually going to be announced the winner?
Most of us at Ringside, we keep our own scores. I always bring scorecards with me, and I sit there and we try not to talk to each other during the fight. We just sit there basically like this and watch the fight. I will have a pen in my hand, I have loose leaf paper and everything, and I just sit there and I will keep watching the fight as I'm writing notes. RT B, I'll put right by uh, GD. And then I look at my scratch later and I know it's right by Gervonta Davis. And if I look at the clock and I see 1 minute, and I just keep my notes like that. And then later I fix up the notes. And then, but as soon as the round ends, I just watched 180 seconds of the round. And then I take that pen and I put it down on my scorecard, 10-9 Roach. It sounded to me because after every 3 or 4 rounds, we yell at each other, "Hey, Tom, how you scoring it so far? Randy, how you scoring? Jerry, how you scoring it so far?" And I'll look over at Jerry. "Oh, you got it like that? Okay. Wow, you everybody had it close.
They
Everybody,
did have it. Okay, so they did have it close. Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
And everybody accepted the fact that this is a poor excuse for a world title fight, that these guys basically are friends and that they are fighting this like they're in a sparring match, which,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
it there was, I want to watch every fight be the a fight of the year candidate. This wasn't a fight of the moment candidate. There were so many outstanding fights on the card. I thought that the Gary Antoine Russell fight,
Yeah.
I thought his performance, he knew he had to win. He went out there and he did everything. He was fighter of the night. But these guys, Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach, didn't fight one round where they really looked like they wanted to win it. One guy was just almost like robotic, and the other guy was almost the same way, pecking and poking and bobbing and weaving, and no bad intentions on anything. It was a very tough fight to score because how do you score a fight when nothing is happening? So
Gotcha.
basically, everybody there had it close, but I think most people had Lamont Roach slightly in the lead, as did I. And I know that I scored a 10-8, even though the referee didn't say knockdown. I score it how I see it. So
My friend did the same thing. My friend did the same exact thing you did, Randy. Did the same
but
thing you did. Yeah.
the judges can't score it 10-8 unless they're told by the referee knockdown. They weren't told knockdown, and they scored it as they saw it. So that ninth round is going to be a key factor in what we're going to be hearing either later today, or I really doubt it's going to go more than another 2 or 3 days of deliberation and we're going to have an answer.
What is your final prediction on what the outcome's going to be? I'm curious. Do you think that they'll give Lamont Roach the win here?
I'd like to see that, and I do think I would go that far as to do it if I was commissioner. I think they're going to call it a no contest, or
See,
and you'll see an NC or an ND there, which again is the same thing as the draw. So they're just going through the motions. I will be shocked if it is given to Lamont Roach, although he definitely deserves the win. Me, I would definitely give it
so
to
you
him.
would just do it. You would
I would
that
do.
that's
I,
that's a great statement right there. That's a soundbite, Randy. That's a soundbite for the ages right there.
I
I
would give it
like
to him.
it.
No question about it. He went out there, didn't fight the fight of his life, didn't fight the fight that he really wanted to show us that he was going to take the title. But Gervonta Davis never went out there and showed us that he wanted to defend the title.
Yeah.
He fought very apprehensively, almost looking scared of Lamont Roach, and never showed us the fire that we know he really has. I thought that in the fight, in the course of the fight, looking at my scorecard, breaking it down into 12 separate wars, I thought that Lamont Roach won the greater amount of those wars, scored the greater amount of points. Lamont Roach should be the world lightweight champion.
I'll tell you this, Randy, and I'll give you my impression watching from home. I thought the fight started to pick up like maybe in round 8, and I thought the last 4 rounds were pretty decent, if I'm being honest. Did you didn't get the sense that they were picking it up a little bit towards the end or no?
Yes, very good observation. But then after the first 7 rounds, nothing was happening. So even if they threw two more jabs apiece, it was picking up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think both guys realize as they're coming down the stretch, this still could be anybody's fight, but neither guy fought it with this all out determination. Lamont never really fought it that he really wanted to win the title. And Gervonta didn't fight it that he wants to defend the title. It just it went from a snail's pace to just a little bit more than a snail, maybe an ant's pace.
Yeah.
It wasn't this all out blitz. There was
Yeah.
never, and I've seen Gervonta Davis fight at an amazing pace where he comes in and guys can't stand up to his punches. This one, they truly fought it like friends and sparring partners. It was awful.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was a lot of backlash about the card itself because it was $80 pay per view. But I have to say, the fights were pretty good. Like you said, I thought the card itself overachieved a little bit because there was a couple upsets on there. There was some even Julian Williams, his fight, even though he lost, but he fought very bravely, valiantly, tried to win, fought hard, threw a lot of punches. He was coming back even when he was getting hit. I thought overall the card overachieved. But what are your thoughts on the card in general? I mean, do you think because it was a pay-per-view card and if it was $80, do you think if it was just a regular card on Prime, do you think it would have been more well received?
In the days before the fight, on Sirius Radio and on my Randy's Ringside, uh, on my Facebook Live show, I said 79.99 is way too much for this show, and I think it's going to die a miserable death. And I don't know what the numbers are, and I don't know if the PBC is going to give us a true accounting of those numbers. But at 79.99, I just didn't think it was the kind of card that deserved that kind of price. Remember, a week earlier, we saw one terrific card on Amazon Prime with a few heavyweight fights, a middleweight title fight, light heavyweight title fight, which everybody wanted to see, the rematch between Better BF and Bivol. And we got it for $25.99. That price was an absolute steal. That was like, one of those November Black Fridays when you go and you buy yourself a big television and you're paying you $150 for the TV or something like that. That was so worth it. And then to see this card offered to us for $79.99, and certainly the way the main event played out wasn't worth that kind of money. I thought that the Sandor Martin fight, I thought Sandor really won the fight. And this is a guy that I consider to be the most boring fighter I've ever seen. Didn't fight boring. He fought
No,
really interesting against Albert Puello.
he did.
And I thought that he may have won the fight. I thought he got ripped off. The only one, I mean, I did truly enjoy the Gary Antoine Russell fight because he was so focused on the win here that he went out and he did what he had to do. He knew he couldn't lose his second fight in a row. He went in 17-1. He came out 18-1. It was his first time going 12 rounds. And I think he put himself in the thick of the 140-pound race. But overall, it was a decent card, but not worth $79.99. And I think the PBC is going to take a major hit on it. And we have to look and see what the future of pay-per-view is going to be, because with Turkey Al Sheikh now the major force in boxing, there are going to be a lot of cards put on that I think are going to be so worth the money that it's going to be the only pay-per-view in town. Everything else, uh, no longer can pay-per-view be going for 79, 89, $99. I think those days are gone now.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to switch gears here and talk about Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney, and that was another situation where the decision got changed to a no contest. But we've seen other situations where like a fighter will fail the third party testing company's test, like VADA or USADA, but pass the commission's test. We can go back and look at Danny Garcia versus Eric Morales, where that was a USADA test that Eric Morales tested positive for a PED, clenbuterol, I believe it was, but the commission allowed the fight to go on. Do you think the right decision was made to overturn that Ryan Garcia win to a no contest? Would you have done that under the
Oh,
circumstances?
yeah. I said that right from the get go. I said, I am not one to, because it was asked of me on my Monday Sirius XM show, would you? And I said, look, the fight was Saturday. Everything has to be reviewed. I want to hear what happens when the drug tests come back. And after I heard everything, and it was positive. And he was just acting very crazy, Ryan was. And I said, I don't know what can be believed out of his mouth. All I know is that he tested positive, and I would be looking at a minimum of a 1 year suspension. I might even throw a 2 year suspension at him. And then it came down that they did suspend him for 1 year, and he has treated it as if he was suspended 1 day. He was saying right away that he's going to be fighting in Europe and he's going to be doing this and that. Well, a few things actually fell apart, but now he is going to be fighting where? In Midtown Manhattan at the outdoor show, May 2nd, I think it is. And I think that he's really going to have to be watched. I think he's going to have to be really part of the VADA, the voluntary anti-doping uh, process, where one of those, the WBC's clean boxing program,
Yeah,
because if he denies to be in any of them, I think it's just going to leave a bunch of questions. Well, if he's denying it and he's not letting them test him, then obviously he's probably doing something. But if you just say, okay, here I am, you can test me anytime you want, any day of the week, anytime you want, it makes it clear. You don't care because you're clean.
yeah, yeah. What do you think of the WBC's clean boxing program?
I love it. I think that Mauricio Suleiman is doing a tremendous job. He is on top of his game every single day. They're putting out a daily WBC newsletter. Um, he is really doing all he can um, to make his organization the best of all the alphabet soup organizations. And quite frankly, I think he's doing a great job with that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I got one last one for you because I remember last time we talked, it was after Errol Spence got knocked out by Terrence Crawford,
Yeah.
and it was said that they were going to have a rematch, and you predicted that you didn't think it would happen, and you said that you wouldn't allow it to happen if it was under your jurisdiction at least for a year, and you ended up being right. I mean, he hasn't fought since that fight. What do you think is going to happen with him? Do you think he's actually going to come back?
I think he wants to come back, but I think that that desire to come back is leaving him very quickly. I don't think he should come back. I don't think this man needs to take any more punches. Boxing can be very, very cruel to an individual. And this is not the Errol Spence that we knew years ago. I'm pretty sure that that car accident took more out of him than we realize. And then the beating he took at the hands of Terrence Crawford did further damage. He is not the same guy he once was. And I've interviewed him plenty over the years. I hear a real change in his speech pattern. He's damaged goods. And I'm praying for his own good that he never steps foot in the ring again. Maybe he'll manage fighters, maybe he'll train fighters, but hopefully he never fights again. And I know this: if I was in charge of the New York State Athletic Commission and some promoter came to me and said, okay, I'd like to put on a welterweight 10 rounder, 12 rounder, whatever, and gives me the card, and I said, wait a minute, you got Errol Spence on here. I'm not accepting him. Well, why are you not accepting him? I believe he's damaged goods. And then they come to me and say, he'll pass every one of your medicals. Well, you know what? Many times fighters do pass the medicals because there are limits. They pass the eye test, and we give them CAT scans and MRIs, and they pass the limit, the minimum. But anything past that, there is damage, and if you can't see it and you can't hear it, then something's wrong. No, he's not fighting in my state.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, so Rainey, before I let you go, I want to thank Jackie Kelly, the daughter of the late great referee Wayne Kelly. May he rest in peace. And I just want to give her a shout out as always. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure. Very insightful conversation, and I'll be watching you and Jerry as always. And thank you so much for coming by. Appreciate it.
Joe, thank you so much for having me here. And you mentioned Jackie Keller. I called Jackie IJK, Irish Jackie Kelly. She is my basically have known her since birth. That's my niece, Irish Jackie Kelly. Love you, baby. Joe, thank you for having me. Anytime you want, give me a
Thank
call.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care.